Welcome to Tales from the Trenches Tuesdays. Today, I am absolutely honored to have my good friend and fundraising colleague, Jason Lewis, on board. For those of you who don't know Jason, he's the founder of Responsive Fundraising, a professional learning community committed to changing what it needs to increase fundraising capacity in today's nonprofit sector. He strives to ensure that leaders understand and experience a holistic approach that is meaningful for those on both sides of the gift exchange. Jason is the publisher of Carefully and Critically Responsive's quarterly professional journal. In addition to all that, where I first learned about Jason was from the book, The War for Fundraising Talent, which is actually one of my little go-to books. I've probably given out dozens of them to fundraising colleagues, and I think it's just a great tool for folks to have. Actually, I was fortunate enough to be at one of Jason's in-person seminars back in 2019, and Jason actually took some little excerpts from his book and have these little cards. And I think even on here, I wrote a whole bunch of notes on it. So you can kind of see Jason is kind of like the founder of those 3-lane approach to fundraising, which we'll get to in a little bit. But I just really wanted to welcome Jason to our inaugural video podcast.
Hey, Jack, it's really great to be here. And it's as a podcast host myself, it's kind of cool to be on the receiving end, not on the administrative end. So I've got my coffee. It's a bright Tuesday morning, and I'm looking forward to hanging out with you for a little while this morning.
You got it. Cheers. So I think that one of the things that I wanted to start with is this video podcast is going to be called Tales from the Trenches. So it's stories and kind of those all fundraisers have great stories. And that's what separates the good fundraisers from the not so good fundraisers. And so I was thinking, if you could kind of share with me, what was the best canvas you ever went on and why was it the best canvas?
I was thinking about that last night because I was, Jack, as I was reviewing what the conversation was going to be about today, and I actually three different instances came to mind to sort of say the good, bad, and the ugly in terms of what these experiences have been. I think I don't even know which way to categorize them, but I think the most enlightening solicitation that I ever went on very early in my career, Jack, was my boss and I were doing a solicitation in New York City, Fifth Avenue, penthouse apartment sort of scenario, super wealthy donor, sort of a brand new, and I was a young major gifts officer. I was relatively inexperienced in both the environment and even being in the role. And I was working with my boss. So sort of, it was just, the dynamics were all very, very new to me. And we were probably, Jack, both of us, Danielle and I both, were very much on our toes. And I remember getting up into up into their apartment. So we took the elevator, got in their apartment, sat down on the couch. And Jack, I think one of the first things that the gentleman said, him and his wife were sitting there on the opposite couch across from Danielle and I, he told us to chill out. He told us to sit back and chill out.
All right.
Yeah, and it was like at that moment I realized, I think, that like super rich, wealthy major donors were actually human beings because
right.
Because he said it in a way that was, this gentleman had to be older than my father, right? So
right.
He just told us both, because Danielle was sort of on her toes, and we probably were not sitting back in his couch, and he probably wanted us to, and our age and inexperience in this sort of setting was probably showing, and the meeting went really well, and we subsequently secured, I want to say, this was 15 plus years ago. So I want to say we secured about a 25,000, maybe a maybe a $50,000 pledge
Sure,
or
sure.
gift at that point, which for me and my role and for what the foundation was expecting, that was a really good scenario. And I think we renewed it.
Right,
I
right.
think we renewed it every year after there's something like that. But
So it's interesting that his first instinct was to put you at ease, right? So it probably wasn't his first rodeo,
yeah,
and that was kind of his first instinct. So again, it's that whole personal. Both of us are big advocates of personal relationships. And when it comes to major giving, that's exactly what he did. Is the first part of that personal relationship is, hey, take it easy, put your feet up. I don't know if he necessarily offered you a whiskey, but kind of calm your nerves there, and to just realize that you're both there for the exact same purpose, and it's to better whatever organization that you were with.
well, Jack, you bring up a good point, especially as major gift fundraisers. That's one of the things we have to learn early in our career is that if you're meeting with a donor in that sort of setting, soliciting that type of gift, to use your words, it's not their first rodeo. So no matter how much experience you have, they probably have a lot of experience doing this. I say that to my clients a lot. I say, you're not, if you're the local private school, in terms of your fundraising capacity, you're not competing in terms of your ability to raise funds with the neighboring private school down the street. You're focusing on with the big, you're competing with the big, the big major gifts operation that's at the university where that gentleman and his wife, graduated from or something.
Sure.
That's some of the stuff that you have to make sense of. I work with a lot of religious groups, for example, and a lot of religious groups for the capital campaigns that I work on. A lot of them have experience with, the donors have experience with capital campaigns in their churches, in their synagogues, where they attend the services. And so if you don't make sense of that and you're sitting there, more often than not, my experiences have been that the donor has had bad experiences in these capital campaigns. Oftentimes that's something that was orchestrated in the church. And then they're going to start projecting that experience, and it's your chance, it's your opportunity to either clean that up for them and give them put a better taste in their mouth.
If that was kind of your best fundraising experience, kind of what was your worst, and why was it the worst?
So I've probably told this story to you, Jack, a number of times. I usually tell it in my road show, and I certainly talk about it on my own podcast periodically. And it's actually the inspiration for this forthcoming writing project that I'm working on right now. I was meeting with who at the time was probably the single most generous donor in our local community. He was hosting an event. Him and his wife were hosting an event, and I was in the kitchen with him. He had this small sort of side kitchen. It probably wasn't the main kitchen. It was, very large mansion-like home. I was probably in this, what I thought was the kitchen, but it was me and me and the gentleman were in the kitchen by ourselves. And Jack, one of the things, the gentleman and his wife had already made the contribution. They'd already made the commitment. I don't even know what the pledge cards looked like, but Jack, what I did in that kitchen is I said, Mr. Appel, I said, where would you like to, I basically asked him, where would you like us to put your name on the building, right? I turned what was a charitable gift into an exchange, into this sort of market relationship. And evidently by his response, he said, I mean, this is verbatim, this is what he said. And I've carried this with me. And this is probably 12, 15 years ago, not shortly after I had left the Epilepsy Foundation. He said, sell that to somebody else. He said, sell that to somebody else. That's exactly what he said. The project I'm currently working on, if I felt like that phrase could accurately convey what the new book is trying to talk about, it would be that. He said, sell that to somebody else. And it was like he was saying to me, Jason, you're missing the point. Again, and I was much younger as a fundraiser. I was not consulting yet. And I had not done a lot of capital campaigns of the magnitude that this one was. But this gentleman's name, like I teach over at the local college, his name's all over campus. his wife's name. Now he's deceased, and so his wife's name's all over all over our community now. Even after this gentleman died, they put his name on buildings. And what he was basically, what I began to surmise from that just brief encounter, because there was a little bit of discussion thereafter, was that, and then as I sort of inquired, and I've reflected on this with other local leaders, this wasn't a donor who liked his name on the side of buildings, and he certainly didn't like to have the relationship be, evolved into this sort of marketplace type exchange. And so that was one of those moments where I felt like, and this is the word I consistently use, I borrow it from a friend of ours. I felt like I had betrayed the spirit of the gift, where I had sort of violated the nature of the relationship. I had moved it from what was a charitable gift. The magnitude of that gift was so enormous by comparison to what I thought, perhaps like two humble guys like you and I might think about writing or contributing, and so I just couldn't see it. I couldn't see it.
Well, Jason, thank you so very much for being my inaugural guest on the Tales from the Trenches Tuesdays. I couldn't think of anyone else that I would rather have as my first guest. You and I have known each other, I think it's 3 or 4 years now. And I count you as one of my good confidants when it comes to fundraising, and you're a great guy to just bounce ideas off of. So if folks wanted to get hold of you, how would they do that?
Yeah, so thank you, Jack. I do consider you a friend as well. Certainly more than just a professional colleague. And I look forward to the opportunities that we have to be together in person when those opportunities arise. Best place to find me and to find my consulting team is at responsivefundraising.com. Again, that's www.responsivefundraising.com. I'm sure you can put that in the show notes. And then my email address is just just simply put the word Jason in front of that, Jason at responsivefundraising.com. It's the easiest way to find me. Most people, Jack, find me on LinkedIn. I'm a pretty popular voice on LinkedIn. I've got a lot of, I'm usually posting at least every other day. Got a lot of people counting on me to post something snarky or smart or opinionated. And I
think it's thought-provoking.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah.
Right? And I love reading your stuff because you and I kind of sing from the same hymnal. So, if nothing else, it just kind of affirms my beliefs. And that I'm not, because sometimes as a fundraiser, you think that you're alone on an island somewhere. And no one really understands you, and you're just some beast that they kind of throw meat at every now and then. But when I hear folks like you, and we're kind of singing from the same hymnal, I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm not totally off my rocker. It's helpful. So thank you very much for doing that.
Hey, Jack, it's been a pleasure.
Likewise.